I think there's like a 5-minute limit, so we'll see. So I got to go into the cell room, one of the downstairs labs where they're growing cancer cells, and I had to, like completely suit up and stuff. So they had breast cancer cells, and then they had skin cancer cells, and these are purchased from like a corporation. The cells are from someone who has donated their body to science. So I got to look at them through a very powerful microscope, and that was kind of cool. These cancer drugs have, well, all of your cells have this protein called HER2, HER2, and it's an integral protein, and it helps with a lot of things. One of them is controlling how fast the cell divides, and I think usually they're like 50,000 per cell, and in these breast cancer cells there are more than 2 million, so they divide extremely quickly. And one of the, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but they use that and they harvest that protein off these cells, and then use it for some of their tests. And then but today they got in a shipment of just the proteins, and it turns out, well, they're considering, instead of actually growing these cancer cells, because that's expensive and pretty laborious, to just buy the cancer cells, or not buy the cancer cells, buy the HER2 proteins from an American company that sells all sorts of things like that. And then they can just do their testing without dealing with growing these cells, because it is kind of a pain. Next week, on Monday, I'm actually going to go to their to the place where they have like the mice that they use for the monoclonal antibodies, and it's because there are no animals allowed in this lab. This lab and like tons of other companies put all their animal testing or animal like whatever they use them for in this one center, and I don't know exactly where it is, but it has like, I saw a video of it today. There's this huge room, and it's full of all these mice, and like, I guess people just store their mice there. And they're like, yeah, you can inject the mice and stuff. And I was like, yeah, sure, okay, maybe. And I think they prepped them a few days ago. First, you have to inject paraffin into their cavity, their body cavity, and then that says like, if the mouse is still normal after that, that means they can withstand the treatment that they'll do for the monoclonal antibodies, and if they're not, then they will have died already. So yeah, and then they put the antigen into the mouse, and the mouse starts making tons of B lymphocytes and antibodies for that, and they accumulate in the gut, and it's called ascites liquid, and it's also very common in cirrhosis, when your liver kind of just dies. So a ton of liquid will be accumulated in but in the mouse's gut, and they'll have these huge pot bellies full of fluid, and then they'll harvest this like, I think 3 times, up to 3 times, 3 or 4 I think, before the mouse is already kind of like spent, and they use those and they purify them for their research. And they, like, the normal way of monoclonal antibodies is once you harvest the B lymphocytes from the mouse, you fuse them with the myeloma, the cancer cells, the spleen cancer cells, and then they basically make monoclonal antibodies forever. And they do that downstairs, except they said that the amount that they get from the hybridoma production is not nearly as much or as good quality as they do from the mice, and that's why they use the mice.